Another interesting case, we don't always sue the federal government. We sometimes sue local governments or government entities to get access to information because, as you know, government corruption isn't just here in Washington, D.C. So we have this interesting lawsuit on behalf of a D.C. Metro watchdog. It's called Unsuck Metro. Forgive the language, but that's the name of the group. And they're suing the Metro, which is the DC, which is our local subway here in Washington, D.C. It serves Virginia, Maryland, and D.C. And the Metro is run by the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority. So like other localities with transit systems, you sometimes have multi-state entities that run the transit system, most famously the Port Authority up in New York. So the WMATA, the Metro, as I call it down here. Now, Metro down here is notorious for being unsafe, corrupt, wasteful, and of course they want billions of your dollars. So you subsidize our Metro here. Federal government subsidizes it. And I mean, I'll tell you one story about Metro. There was one policy they had, I recall a reporter, one of the news stories reporting it, because people die on the Metro too often, both employees and regular riders. And most recently, I think someone died in a smoke-filled tunnel. I think this is at least 2 years ago now, 3 years ago. And the DC Metro policy was to, if there were smoke in a tunnel, they would send a train full of passengers into the tunnel to figure out what was going on. So, as you might imagine, and there was a major accident several years ago in 2009 that killed 9 people, and that woman who was killed in the smoke incident was killed in 2015. Has an operating budget of $1.7 billion, and it has declining ridership. Now, when Metro works, it works great, but when it doesn't work, it's a disaster. Now, I say that because I'm a regular Metro rider. I know what's going on. So Unsuck Metro is a critic of Metro. They are a watchdog of Metro. They're an unincorporated association. And they'd asked for something simple, a customer satisfaction tracking study. So Metro did a study as to what customers, as whether customers were satisfied or not. So in typical government fashion, they gave our client a version of the survey with 28 of 29 pages completely blacked out and redacted. And I think the only page that was not blacked out, had some demographic questions, but none of the answers, like age, race, and sex of the customers who filled out the surveys. So they don't want the questions out there, and they don't want the answers about customer satisfaction. Complete outrageous secrecy. And so, this group, Unsuck DC Metro, wants the documents. So we're suing for them in court here in Washington, D.C. So we've got this corrupt government entity that is bleeding your tax dollars dry. I don't know, maybe mixing metaphors there. It's dangerous. It's known as the worst in the world. It's probably not the worst in the world, but it can be pretty bad. And, it's the Metro for your capital city. And it's a disaster. So it's, again, up to Judicial Watch to try to extract basic information from this corrupt government entity. Certainly doing the work on behalf of our client, who had the idea to actually ask the government entity for basic information about its operations and how customers thought of it. I mean, obviously, if the survey had good news, we would be having it released to the public immediately. But obviously there's bad news here, and they're trying to keep it secret. So think about this case as you have your own local FOIA cases. because I just want to let you know, obviously we can provide help where we can. We don't have unlimited capacity. But you can ask your local community governments, your local governments, state and federal, state and local, you can ask federal too, questions under your own FOIA laws. There are state FOIA laws that are often better than even the federal FOIA law. So you can be your own FOIA activist, as Unsuck Metro was, and you can ask for documents, and the government has to respond to you. Now they may not, it may be frustrating. You'll see why Judicial Watch has to file hundreds of lawsuits. But it's important that we hold our government accountable. And this Freedom of Information Act and similar open records laws are essential to doing that. We wouldn't know about all of these scandals we're talking about without the Freedom of Information Act at the federal level. Now, of course, the agencies abuse the law, don't follow the law. That's why we go to court to do it. But we couldn't be in court without the underlying Freedom of Information Act. And that tool is available to you. You know, we've got this precious right here in the United States where we're allowed as citizens and civic organizations like Judicial Watch to use the law to hold our government accountable. You know, that's not available in most other countries. Even Western countries. They don't have transparency laws like we do. And if you want the government to lord over you without any accountability, without having to answer any questions, I guess that's your right. But as freedom-loving American citizens, I'm sure you agree with me, whether you're on the right or the left, that the government has to be accountable. So whether it be suing Metro or the IRS or the State Department or the Justice Department or the FBI or CIA, you name it, Judicial Watch is there for you and the rest of the American people, trying to remind the government that they're responsible to us, they work for us, the American taxpayer and the American citizen, and they need to respond to us as the law requires.